So, welcome everybody to our seminar. I'm Linwood Fields. I'm head of film at the Audience Awards, and as usual, we're really excited about this week. This is just one of our favorite things that we get to do for our filmmakers and our film community, and we are very lucky to be sponsored by the Montana Film Office, who is sponsoring this conversation. And if you are looking for a good place to shoot film, Montana is a great place to check it out. And we are joined by some great, wonderful panelists. But first, I wanted to introduce our moderators and our host, Phil and Rhonda from Pro8. Thanks for putting this all together for us.
Oh, thank you, Linwood, and thanks for the opportunity. We're going to have a fun conversation today.
And if you don't know Phil and Rhonda, you really need to know them for many, many different reasons. We are lucky to work with them on multiple levels at the Audience Awards. We ran competitions with them, and we got to join them at Oddfest, and they put on wonderful panels, so we know this is going to be great. But also, if you are looking for a place to get any of your Super 8 film or any of your film developed, these are the people to know. So this series today that we're going to talk about is something old and something new, where we get to talk about using Super 8 film and real film at weddings. And I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda and Phil in just a second. I just wanted to talk logistics for all our attendees that are out there right now. This is kind of a seminar slash panel. We're going to have our experts up here talk a little bit. And then at any point, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. There's a place at the bottom where you can raise your hand, and I will promote you to panel. We will be able to see you as a video, and you can address any of these people and ask them questions, and then I'll move you back to an attendee. If you are a shy person, which some of us are, you can go ahead and write that question in, and I will tell it to the panelists and have them answer it too. So we have a good little lineup of people watching you guys, and thank you so much for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda and Phil to start the discussion.
Great. Well, thank you, Linwood, and thank you to all the panelists who are here today and all of you out there who are listening. Just briefly tell you a little bit about the Super 8 format and the regular format for that matter. You know, in 1932, when we first started being able to bring cinema into the home, it was really a revelation to be able to capture your own images. And through the evolution of the 8mm format and the Super 8 format, which was introduced in 1965, one of the things that people absolutely loved to film was weddings. And so if you are lucky enough to have been able to see your grandparents or some great-grandparents or relatives' wedding an 8mm or Super 8 film, I think you can appreciate the nostalgia and the beauty of those gorgeous images for capturing those milestones. Because one thing we do know for sure, film is the only proven archival medium. And with that being said, our company, Pro8mm, has been able to work with many filmmakers for generations, not only archiving weddings that were shot long ago, but with a whole new generation of filmmakers who also want to embrace Super 8 as a way to capture milestones for their clients. We're very lucky that we get to work with some of the talented people I'm going to introduce to you right now who will be participating in this conversation with us today. So let me start by first introducing Shanna Howard. Shanna's from Austin, Texas. And Shanna, want to say a word about your company, Nostalgia Films?
Sure. Nostalgia Films has been around about 7 years now, and kind of got inspired by growing up and my dad shooting Super 8mm while I was little, so I still have some great reels that I've converted to digital of my childhood, and was inspired by that. And a lot of people it really resonates with a lot of people to have their wedding filmed on Super 8. So it's been a great opportunity the last several years to meet a lot of people and film a lot of weddings on Super 8.
Well, thanks. We'll get into some of the specifics in your beautiful work as we move along today. I'd next like to introduce to you a filmmaker from Portland, Robert Euland. So Robert, welcome to our panel.
Thank you, and it's good to meet you both. I've been working with you for a while and never seen you, so it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I started, my exposure to film began in film school in 2006, and I turned just really recently to Super 8 as a way to combine that new knowledge with my wedding business. And just this year, I've actually converted completely to Super 8 and 16mm film. So those are the only formats that I'm offering now, and I'm loving it. So
fantastic. Well, yeah, you do some beautiful work, so thanks for participating today.
And you have some good stuff coming back to, because I was working on some of your stuff this morning.
I was going to ask.
You started to talk. I was like, I recognize that name. Oh, that's right. I was doing this morning some 16mm and some 8.
That's awesome. So no black rolls?
No.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Great, thanks. And our third panelist is Paul Owens from Santa Barbara Film. So Paul, welcome.
Why, thank you very much. It's good to be here. Yeah, basically our journey started back in the 70s. My father was a pilot for the Air Force, and he would travel to Japan a lot, and he'd bring back these cameras, and he'd shoot movies of us, when we were young. And eventually, like home movies, family movies, eventually they went away. And about 5 years ago, as my wife and I, we shot concert photography and stuff like, we decided to do something unique, and we asked Dad, where are those cameras, Dad? And he opened up the Hope box, and he had 3 pristine Super 8mm cameras left. And so we just decided to venture off and try to do the wedding thing with these cameras. And that was about 5 years ago when we filmed our first wedding. And that's kind of how Super 8 came to us, just through this unique adventure.
Awesome. So I guess my first question will have to be to my partner in crime, Phil, who, as we've run this business and we've seen the use of weddings in Super 8, both archival and new ones, have a huge resurgence. What is it that you see in terms of a trend as to why this might be popular?
Oh, I think, just the aspect of, weddings as an idea is kind of a nostalgic idea, and it brings together families and generations at one event. And whenever you're doing that kind of multi-generational kind of thing with so much history, it's just kind of fun to be in the mood of, some of that nostalgic ideas. Like even the camera's presence at the wedding is awesome. People, just are warm to the fact that someone is shooting their wedding with this classic piece of equipment. And I think those things all kind of roll up into one that makes the whole experience, not just the end product of film that they get out of it, but the whole experience of doing it with that kind of thing is just a great experience for everybody.
Well, what would the panelists say? Why are couples attracted to the idea of using Super 8 film to capture their wedding day?
I think they're drawn to the uniqueness of it and just how organic it is. There's a lot of HD trends happening right now that are very cinematic, very produced. You've got drones. The standards for HD are getting more and more, I guess, just robust and better. But then there's a whole another group of people that are drawn to just that magic of film and the look and feel of it, the nostalgia of it, I've had them tell me that it looks magical, and that they just really get an emotional response from that. And I think that's really cool. And the fact that, they can set it away 50, 100 years and it's there, for whatever future formats we end up with down the road.
Right. Well, what do you think, Robert? Do you usually have to pitch the Super 8 to them, or are your clients already coming to you knowing that they want something kind of unique in their, wedding videography? Look for most, let's face it, when you look at your typical wedding videos, they all look more similar than different.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say personally, I'm getting a mix, of folks that want a wedding videographer and don't really know anything else, about what that entails. And so that conversation usually involves a lot of education about the services that I offer, how it's not video specifically, it's this other beautiful technology. And I really actually think this is an area where, Super 8 filmmakers who service weddings have an opportunity to grow. There's a lot of education that can be done in this area about the benefits of Super 8. But on, I would say maybe the other 30% of the time I get these couples who are just like smitten with Super 8 already. And they come to me saying, I don't just like, take my money. I want my wedding on Super 8 is beautiful. It, you know, there's, you don't have to sell me. You don't have to pitch me. Like, just show me your contract. And I love that, obviously, because it does, like, sells itself almost, you know, without knowing why, you know, there are certainly technical explanations, I think, for why Super 8 can be superior and attractive to clients. But even without even have that conversation, it's sort of, you know, there are just these physical manifestations of why Super 8 is so beautiful. Clients just see immediately.
So Paul, especially these young couples, would you say that they even know what Super 8 is? Or have they just seen something that they know looks different and is unique? And if they see it on your website, they want that for themselves. What's been your experience with, you know, how people even discover that they may want things shot on Super 8?
Well, lots of our clients, they do see the Super 8, and most of the time the first thing they say is that really what it was like back in the 70s or back in the 60s when, you know, Super 8 came in 65 from 8mm, and I would say, yeah, this is actually a motion picture. It's silent. It's just raw image. The beauty of it, I feel, is unparalleled to digital, and they kind of just go, whoa, wow, wow, I didn't know that was around still, and so that's the explanation we take with young couples, and a lot of them do like the fact that it's silent because they don't want to be heard during their wedding, and the fact that they love that we can add music and a little melody to the timeline and make it like just a beautiful overall, you know, documentary of their wedding day.
I mean, I think you've hit on a good point, and that's something that I've always found interesting. It's unlike a wedding videographer who is just, you know, shooting hours and hours and hours of video. In Super 8, you're sort of doing it shot by shot with your 50-foot roll and maybe 15-second clips edited together in a beautiful montage to hit the highlights of the day. Is that a sell for most for most wedding clients who might think, oh, but I want, for example, I want to hear the vows. That's one that we get a lot. I mean, how do you deal with that when they want the Super 8 wedding sort of highlights montage, but they also want to capture the vows word for word? Shanna, how do you handle that kind of situation?
Well, I've been shooting, I guess for several years, I've been shooting a mix of HD and Super 8 so that, you know, I've kind of tried a few different ways where the final product has a mix of both, you know, HD video and Super 8mm. I've also put it where they can get a Super 8, you know, short highlight film, but then they get their toast and they get their ceremony on HD video. I'm not really doing anything with sync sound right now, but I will sometimes overlay the vows or overlay a toast or, you know, a special song if they had a live band over the Super 8 footage. So I've kind of played around with a few different options over the years.
Great.
And I wanted to let you know that we have a attendee who wanted to ask a quick question, and then we'll go back.
Okay.
Christian?
Hey guys, so my question's kind of for any and every one of you. What are some of the problems and issues that you run into and have to tackle when you're shooting a wedding in Super 8 that you wouldn't if you were shooting it with any other camera, and, you know, issues that people wouldn't really think would pop up with something like this?
Rob's laughing.
Dude, it's such an awesome question. I'm laughing because that is like, I could probably talk for a month solid about, I mean, there are so many more unique and like obscure variables shooting Super 8. Not to discourage anybody, but it is one of the like joys and pains of shooting on vintage and antique cameras that, you know, you can't hop online. Thankfully, actually, there are some great resources online about, you know, old camera manuals and stuff like that. But there are just, you know, because I came to Super 8 as a videographer, and there are just things, you know, that like the built-in filter, you know, the way that light is measured is different almost for every camera, it seems. And so that, you know, that question is probably it's going to lead you to one of the biggest investments of time in the transition from video over to film. Are first identifying all of those quirks and then troubleshooting them for your specific situation is like, it's a major investment and one that should be considered with the gravity it deserves. Yeah.
And if I may add, I'd like to, think that we could be a sort of support for any filmmaker who wants to get into it, because, for some people, they don't want to necessarily go through the treasure hunt of the vintage cameras, even though it can be a lot of fun. It can also be expensive testing out all those cameras with film. For those of you who don't know, at Pro8mm, we rebuild the best of the best vintage cameras. They're tested before they're ever sold. You can rent them if you want to try a couple of different models. And then one of the things that we like to do is we sell the film with the processing and the scanning. So you're kind of getting your hand held through the whole process of what film stock perhaps would be best if you live in a place that you're going to be shooting and it's always cloudy, or there's a chance it's going to rain, or you're going to be shooting indoors and maybe you need to have a different consideration of what type of film stock. And so, I think you're right, Rob, there's some great resources out there, but we'd like to think that we can also support the community and encourage people to take a chance. We're going to have your back and make sure that your whole workflow is covered. So, so thank you for that question. And so that brings me to my next question. What is your typical workflow, guys? I mean, how do you like to get started with the technical end of things prior to actually arriving at the big day? Paul, have any thoughts on that you'd like to share?
Oh, yes, there's many thoughts on that subject. So prior to arriving, I make sure I do contact y'all, and I make sure I have all my film stock ready and down to the last row. And also, Super 8 cameras, you got to make sure your batteries are good to go also. So, the batteries are very special in those cameras. And also you want to have with your clients, their timeline really down. That's via the wedding planner. You want to make sure they're going to be, she may be waking up at 8:30 getting her dress on and she wants that shot. So you got to make sure every little detail from morning, which we do, till the end of the reception is known. And then always back to Pro8mm with any other answers they could help us with as shooters.
Right. So you bring up a good point. I'm sure different clients want different things in terms of how they envision their Super 8 package to look. Some people might want the whole getting ready part. Some people might just want the ceremony and reception. How do you price your packages? When you first meet with a client, what does that initial meeting look like in terms of what their options may be? And anybody who wants to jump in here, I'd be curious to hear from the panel, exactly what that might look like.
Well, we have just a basic package which would cover the ceremony. We have a mid-range package that would cover maybe when the bride shows up at the place of ceremony, and then we have a kind of an all-day package, which these are packages that provide enough film. So if we have an all-day deal, then we need enough film, and that's how we base our packages off of. And you don't need 10 rows of film to do a ceremony, but you may, or a reception, but you do need that all day long for every highlight.
Absolutely. What about you, Shanna? How do you price your packages? Do you have options for clients?
I guess over the last few years, I've shot anywhere from 2 to 3 hours up to 10 hours, and it just really varies. I think right now my smallest package is about a 4-hour package, but I customize depending if it's small elopement or a backyard wedding where they only want just a little bit of coverage. Up to one where it was like a 2-day summer camp wedding where I shot 10 or 12 hours, I think. And I tend to average about a roll an hour just to kind of keep myself safe. And some packages are just me, some packages are me plus a second shooter. And so I kind of, play around with the amount of film just on that. You know, if I'm only going out by myself and shooting for 4 hours, and I'm shooting, you know, 2, 3, 4 rolls, something like that. But it just goes up from there.
I have to tell you, that's a great point that you made about, you know, allowing 1 hour for one roll of film. I think most people's perspective of the fact that the roll is only 2 or 3 minutes long is super limiting. But I think that, you know, as you said, from having experience, it really does take a fair amount of time to set up what you want. And, you know, it really, a roll of film lasts you quite a long time when you're looking at shot by shot. I always tell people, you know, a good shot's 3 to 5 seconds long, and you've got 40 of those on a roll of film. It's a lot better than thinking of it as a 2.5 minute roll of film. A lot of people think, you know, how am I ever going to accomplish anything with 2.5 minutes? But it takes a lot of time to really go after great shots. And thank you for bringing that up.
We also had a question that I wanted to just pitch to the panel, if I could jump in, is based off the fact that you guys create with film and that there's very small moments you have to capture using film. They would like to know from each one of you, what was the best moment or most memorable film moment you caught at a wedding? If you can think of it, funny, sad, something that just stuck out that you were really proud that you got.
That's great. Paul, you want to jump in?
Oh, yes. Usually I'm always the most worried about shooting, you know, when the vows are said and the couple kisses. And so I'm always planning that moment, and you know, and me and my wife and I will have 2 cameras going at the same time, and like it said, 3 to 5 seconds, you know, is what you want. So right before you know that's going to happen, it's just you shoot, you just hold that trigger down, you shoot 3 seconds here, 5 seconds there, and that's always been my most proud moment, I guess, because I've had weddings where that's missed and you just kind of don't mention it, I guess, but then you do. But as far as like making something else more beautiful, but that's the moment that we try to, you know, cherish the most and be most prepared for.
Yeah. Had a couple spring to mind. I mean, anything from like a super happy, I had one bride's grandfather like bring out his phone, and during like the portrait session, he was like bopping around to like old country, and just capturing that just like made me giggle. Like sometimes just being so present and in the moment and ready for the spontaneity to unfold that you're really kind of watching what happens, whether it's grandparents or kids, you know. I had one where a sibling of, I think it was a bride, had passed away, and they had on the front row an album cover, just to give a little tribute to her, a silent tribute, and to be able to document that and really just acknowledge her presence in the day was kind of touching. And then anytime I'm somewhere beautiful and I just get to shoot the bride and groom, I just got back, well, I guess several weeks ago, but got back from Marfa, and to shoot out, you know, in West Texas with the mountains and things like that. I really geek out over that. So I think those are probably like my top 3.
Rob?
Yeah, I like what Shauna said about staying in the moment. For me, that is like the major draw to shooting on Super 8, is it forces you to be just right there and sort of empathize with the people that the subjects you're capturing, so that you're, I don't know, it's like an opportunity to first recognize what's important to them, and then to try and translate that. And I just had this clear image in my mind of a shoot I did. I
think we lost you for a sec, Rob.
do.
Well, I'll jump in. One of my clients who couldn't be on the panel because he had another commitment once told me that for him it starts the minute that he meets the bride and groom for the first time, and he tries to develop a relationship with them like he's the favorite cousin or the favorite uncle. And by creating that intimacy right from the beginning and carrying that through to several meetings before the wedding day, that by the time they actually get to the wedding, they really do feel like he's a cousin or a favorite uncle. And he's able to get up close and personal with that Super 8 camera and get shots that he just said you could never get any other way. And so that has always stuck with me when he says, that is a mantra that he practices from day one. And, you know, because you're usually meeting with a client a year out. And I believe it. You can see it in his work, that there's a certain intimacy and connection that just would almost be as if your dad was shooting you, you know? So I love that.
Rob, I want to hear, that sounds beautiful too. Rob, I wanted to hear what you were saying, your best shot idea, and then we actually have a bride-to-be who's going to ask a question too.
Awesome.
Yeah. Rob, we lost you right before your place that you were going, oh, maybe we lost you again.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Keep losing you, Rob. Well, I will let Hannah go ahead and ask a question, and then we'll hopefully get Rob back.
Hi.
Hi, Hannah.
So I'm getting married in January, and whilst looking for videographers and photographers, I've come to notice that a big complaint is a lot of people like to use their phones to capture film or photo, and I was wondering how you guys handle that and approach that so it doesn't ruin those moments, especially on film that you don't really get that second chance to fix it.
Great question. Let's ask one of the filmmakers how they handle that.
Yeah, sure. First of all, congratulations. Excited for you. So I love an unplugged wedding, but it happens very, very rarely. And even if you have the sign or the planner says that it's an unplugged wedding, you'll still have people with phones, sometimes even iPads, like leaning into the aisle with, like the big old screen. But I think it's just, the matter of being able to really be on your toes. And the beautiful thing about the Super 8 camera is that you have a little trigger, and so you can start and stop, pretty much any time. So sometimes I love working with photographers, and I work really well with them and kind of just, do the dance with them. But sometimes you'll get an elbow in your shot, or, the iPad comes out. So I think it's just, quickly moving, if you have to stop shooting and then start reshooting, and just knowing how to position yourself, really to kind of avoid that. There's always going to be phones and, people in the aisle. So it's just kind of a matter of getting different angles and kind of knowing how to work around that.
Great. Robert, the question from our bride, Hannah, was, how do you deal with everybody else's, cell phones and cameras so they don't break the intimacy of the shot? What would your response be? How do you deal with some of that at a wedding?
Well, I sort of just take the approach that, whatever is present at the wedding is part of their day. And if that's cell phones, 50 years from now, we might look back and say, oh, can you believe that? Look at that iPhone 5. It's like, we don't know really what we are going to think about our past in the future. So I tend to take a more documentarian approach. That being said, I really do believe in the close-up and the wide shot. And in those two shots, the cell phone isn't a huge issue. So those are my thoughts on that.
Great. What about you, Paul? How do you handle those other photographers that weren't hired to shoot the wedding?
Well, like Robert said, there's always going to be phones around and people with their little gadgets doing what they want to do. And that's why every shot's important. And so if that instrument or gadget gets in the way, I'm fast to, pull my trigger off the camera, and I'll try a different angle really quickly. And then sometimes it's not gadgets. Sometimes it's people walking right in front of your camera, and all you see is their face go by, and you have to be prepped for that, and then ready and set and to get the shot again. So that's how we kind of approach it, just to be prepared for anything that would be in your way.
Well, we have a different approach. We have 2 daughters that have gotten married in the last 3 years. So we brought 10 Super 8 cameras to the wedding and let the guests shoot. And this has become an idea that people such as yourself who shoot weddings have really become interested in. But we'd actually rent you out a party pack, with some very simple cameras, the little Ronda cam that we sell. And I remember for my daughter's wedding, we even had custom skins made with the bride and groom's name on it that matched the color decor. And we actually, instead of a photo booth, which people are starting to get a little tired of because it's the same old, we do a film shooting booth where we let the guests shoot. And it's amazing. And it's so much fun to see these cameras that were meant for consumers anyways actually being picked up by the guests at the wedding, and, you know, keeping them loaded with a roll of film that, you know, is actually edited into something that's very different than what the professional filmmaker is shooting. I have to say, would you say, Phil, at both our daughters' weddings, it was like the highlight of the wedding?
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say, honestly, some of the footage that they got, because that intimacy between two people and that know each other is never duplicated by two people that are strangers. And for some reason, even with their amateur aspect to what they're doing technically, they often get some great fill-in shots that I absolutely love in terms of, you know, having, you know, footage that I didn't have a perspective on.
And it's amazingly fun. You know, you have the clap slate, and you just, it's something that, you know, I would highly, you know, encourage you to do, or even, you know, to be able to find a couple of old cameras and just have them out there. It really makes it a lot of fun. That could end up being an expensive add-on. Obviously, we own Pro8mm, so, you know, it was really, you know, something that we really wanted to do for our kids. But I think moving forward, you know, it would really be something to look at in terms of something that's really unique, because they are going to get shots that are very different than what they get on their iPhone. So
Can I ask a follow-up question? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Because this is something I've wondered. Some of my clients have asked, you know, hey, could we use one of these cameras or take one on our honeymoon? And I love that idea. It's so romantic. And I wonder how you overcome the, even just the simple fact of explaining that you have to focus the camera, you know?
Well, good question. And again, my good friend and client who couldn't be on the panel today, you should check out his stuff, Brandon Lower from A. Bryan Photography in Birmingham, Alabama. He was the first one who came up with the idea of sending the couple on the honeymoon with a Super 8 camera. So part of what he does during these meetings where he's creating intimacy, he's also showing them how to use the camera. He's like, because I'm not going on your honeymoon with you. I'll edit the footage, I'll cut it into the final reel, but, you know, this is how you use it. And I think it's amazing. I think it's great. It gives you something unique to add on to your business model, and it's just something really delightful for the client. And so maybe if somebody's looking to give the client a very unique wedding gift, you know, because don't forget, they're going to have other milestones. They might have babies. They might have graduations. And I'm a big proponent that milestones should be shot on real film, because film is forever. We don't know about digital. You know, I've already lost so many digital photos because I haven't backed them up properly. But I have all my grandfather's films from the 1930s and all my uncle's films from the 1960s and all our films from 1982 moving forward. And we have them stored, and even if my hard drive crashes, those things will get transferred again. And usually better, because we get better scanners.
But to answer your question in terms of the technical, you have to reduce it down as much as possible by, you know, turning them on to the simplest camera. At the wedding that I had, you know, people shoot, I actually taped down the focus so that they couldn't focus. So I set it at, you know, what's called the hyperfocal length, which is where almost everything is in focus. And so I just taped the lenses so that they couldn't access the focus. And then I used that Ronda cam, which is the Canon 814, Canon 310 XL, which has the largest exposure range of any camera, and I put color negative film in. So blocking them out with the focus, giving them the broadest range film, you know, I stacked the deck in my favor, because yes, exactly, to hand over a normal Super 8 camera with all the buttons and stuff that they could turn, you'd really have to do a lot of education before you cut them loose with that. And so you've got to simplify it as much as possible to make that work.
And I wanted to let you know there is a question that got typed to me for the panel. All of you are talking about weddings and doing live filming, you know, not missing moments. Do any of you also shoot narratives with real film, and the difference between those? So I can jump in. I don't, so
my personal filmmaking practice is split into a couple of different avenues, and I don't shoot narrative, but I do shoot with subjects. I work with dancers, and I find that the skills that I pick up when I'm shooting a wedding transfer over in a really interesting way. The sort of improvisation that's required, the jumping in to catch a moment, it makes me a really it helps me stay in the moment. And so dancers is kind of unique because they can't perform a line over and over like 30 times like you might be able to do in a narrative picture. So there's sort of a limited window, just like, in a wedding. And so yeah, I think that there are differences. The Super 8 format, though, is so versatile. It's so cost effective for the benefits of celluloid film that you achieve from it. And now with the scanning techniques that are available, like through Pro8, I mean, you can have a theatrical, sized, exposition ready digital file from this like tiny negative. It's amazing to me. So I don't know why you would choose, unless you have access to some amazing HD camera, some Epic or some, something that's ready to go for. Why not shoot Super 8? It's amazingly democratic in my mind for that reason.
Thanks, Rob. Paul?
I've never used the narrative approach. I basically just take it as it is. I mean, I love the simplicity of Super 8. Like Phil said, it's just compared to any other story you want to tell. We've just gone along with the motion picture, and it's because we enjoy the fact that each, it's 18 frames a second, so each photo taken is there's, in our camera there's 18 in there, so it creates a moving picture, and we've always used that approach, and that's what we find special about Super 8.
Shauna, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. So I did one short experimental film on Super 8 that was narrative. It was just more for me to get to practice some different skills. I was learning about hand processing, just black and white at the time. And I also have done some advertising. I would love to do music videos in the future. I've talked to a couple friends about doing that, and also have a couple documentaries that I still really, really want to make. And I don't think we would shoot those entirely on Super 8, but I definitely think we could use that for the B-roll and establishing shots and things like that. So I definitely want to integrate it into all sorts of different work. And I've shot my own daughter on a Super 8, which is, the first 6 months of her life, which was awesome. And so yeah, I've done a bunch of different things with it. It's pretty versatile for a lot of different format, or a lot of different mediums.
Awesome. And then Rhonda and Phil, I wanted to let you guys know too, and everybody, that this goes so fast. We have 5 minutes left, so I would love. I know we had a whole group of questions, so maybe you have one or two that you want to make sure that we get to. So.
Well, I'd like to know, and this is a perfect lead-in from your last question, Linwood, is how has being a Super 8 film shooter helped your career? Have you gotten more notoriety, more work, awards? I often hear from people that it is a unique skill set that sets them apart from other people out there who are offering event videography or just filmmaking. So I'd like to hear from the panel how this skill set and has helped their careers.
Sure.
Shauna?
Okay, and sorry. For me personally, I guess there's been a couple of awards and a lot of publications, bridal publications, blogs, things like that. I had one wedding that seems to be everybody's favorite that I shot years ago that was just super colorful, and I think it ran on 15 or 20 different blogs. So I won an award that year from Two Bright Lights. It's like an Editor's Choice Award. And I kind of use Super 8 in tandem with a lot of analog photography. So I've had my analog photography published in LUK and things like that. So it's been it's been really great. And I think people come to me because it's been what I've been doing for so many years. And yeah, I'm actually at the point of thinking about going back to grad school and doing some studies in archival work. So it's definitely got my heart.
It's been I'll jump in here. It's been a great opportunity for me to get to use skills that I built, you know, that were sort of withering away, that I built in film school. And you know, so for me, it's about the creative satisfaction that's so important to maintain a healthy long-term career in this field that can sometimes lead to burnout, you know, where you're working in events that are pretty similar, you know, day in, day out. To me, to have the creative challenge and to get to use that film brain, you know, where I'm shooting manually and measuring the light, and it just leads to a really all around, you know, it's a more rewarding experience overall. Certainly it helps, you know, set me apart in this very crowded Portland market. It's you know, done lots for me in that way. But I would say even more than that, it's just about creative satisfaction. One other thing I haven't gotten to talk about, which is really important to me, is the ethical aspect of this format. The fact that we get to reuse these cameras, that it is we get to, as filmmakers, it's rare these days to be able to fully participate in the reuse economy and to contribute to it. So to bring these cameras back to life, to, you know, take a 60-year-old piece of steel and make some images out of it is extremely rewarding. And, you know, certainly, I mean, there's all kind of opportunities to help market yourself from that perspective. But for me, it's maybe even more than that. It's, I want to participate in it. You know, I want my career to reflect my values, and shooting Super 8's a great way to do that.
Love that.
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
Well said.
Well, my final question would be, what advice would you have to either somebody who's thinking about getting into the Super 8 wedding business, or to a couple who's thinking about making that investment and having their wedding shot on Super 8s? Like, kind of like to just get a little bit of closing remark from each panelist about that. So let's start with Paul.
Yeah, so first I appreciate this time with you, and for those wanting to venture out and do Super 8 as a business, whether it's weddings or documentaries or lifestyle films, first off, do contact Pro8mm. Second off, I learned through manually using a digital camera, and that's how I was able to transfer that skill and knowledge to Super 8, because I've been basically everything on a Super 8 is manual. You have to know light, aperture, et cetera. And yeah, but overall, we just appreciate Pro8mm, and you've been like a huge help in our business.
We appreciate you guys for keeping the format alive. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. What about you, Shanna? What would be your final advice to somebody who either wants to get in the business or wants to have a wedding shot on Super 8?
Well, for me personally, I guess 6 or 7 years ago, I came out to Burbank and met you, Rhonda, and Phil, and really got a lot of great knowledge out of that. I did a boot camp with you guys, and you know, I've learned a lot from y'all, a lot since then, just by getting hands-on with it. I think if you're a filmmaker, you know, there's some fear involved in it, but I think it's a great medium to be able to try out for sure. And you definitely have some great guidance in Rhonda and Phil and Pro8mm. For brides and grooms, I think, you know, if they want something that is unique and archival and just very organic, you know, I love Super 8. You know, definitely am an evangelist for shooting on film. So, you know, I think there's so many positives for shooting on Super 8 that it's definitely something that they should look into. And yeah, just thanks for having me here today. I love taking part with you guys always.
And in the few seconds we have left, Robert, what about you?
Yeah, thanks again for putting this together and for having me. I appreciate the invitation. I would say just quickly to filmmakers, besides what Paul said about shooting manual, getting lots of practice, I say save up for a camera with as few quirks as possible. If it's not one that's been fully refurbished by Pro8, I would say, save up for that Canon 1014 and find one that's been recently serviced. That's a good way to get into it without much extra risk. And to couples, I guess I would say if what you want is an artist's perspective on your day and maybe not a literal documentation of your day, finding a Super 8 filmmaker is the most ethical and beautiful way you can do that.
Love it. Well, thank you all for continuing to create beautiful images and for participating. Thank you, Linwood.
Thank you all. That was just amazing, and we could have listened for a good another hour and asked questions probably. Thank you to all our attendees. Thanks to panelists. And really, thank you so much, Rhonda and Phil, for putting this together and being who you are at Pro8. We just wanted to do one more thank you to Montana Film Office as well. And we at the Audience Awards do this every Tuesday through our summer series. So coming up, we have YouTube stars, we have the producer and directors from Vice, and Outfest directors. So it's going to be a great another couple months. And thank you guys. This was fantastic. And we will keep in touch and look forward to following your career some more. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
bye, everybody.
Bye.